Yeah, welcome guys to another video. This video is going to be filled with a lot of things that a lot of people may consider conspiracy theories, or these are just things that are in my head as I'm driving this morning. I keep hearing, and a lot of the things that I listen to, the things that I read, I keep hearing this relenting of power, or this supplying of power, or rendering of power towards what we call the government. A lot of the times I hear people say things to the effect of, the government has the control, the government's doing this, the government. And I'm here to tell you guys that, and this is just me, I was thinking very, very hard about this, and I could be wrong. I'm not saying that I'm infallible or I'm inerrant in the things that I'm saying. I'm sure that there can be errors in the things that I say, and I'm sure that we all have gaps of ignorance, some wider than others, in our worldviews. We're just all here just trying to figure things out together as a collective. But it's hard to figure things out as a collective when there's so much things that are incorporated deliberately and strategically to divide us mentally, spiritually, in every other way that you could think of. We're all divided. But I want to talk about this idea of rendering so much power and potency to something that we call government, right? We always say the government, and I'm here to tell you guys there is no government. There's no government. There's an idea of a government that we believe in, and the idea of the government that we believe in is what creates the reality that we actually have a government. We have no government. What has happened to all of us as a collective, as a humanity, as a human race, especially here in the Americas, is that we have given up our rights intentionally to what we think a government is. There's no government. It's like students in a classroom say that they have a teacher, but there's no visible teacher there. But you believe you have a teacher, but the teacher's not there. You may have an adult inside the room, but you just call the adult the teacher. But the true teachers are the students. The students are the students and the teachers. What I'm saying is that the people, we are the government. There is no government. We have to govern ourselves. This idea of a government that we all collectively, believe to be true, has been something that's been implanted in our minds over time. It's been a subtle insertion in our brains. It's manifested itself and it's grown. It's matured to a point where if you tell any average person that we have no government, they're going to look at you like you're crazy, because believe in something has a strong way of molding our reality. We have people who believe in things they haven't seen. They believe in fairy tale characters and myths, and they die for those things. People die for beliefs. Not dying for what they know, they die for their belief. So how much more in America, where we're getting continually coverage on mainstream media, what used to be known as legacy media, we're getting those things constantly about the government this, senator this, the governor, the mayor, the government. We have no government. Over time, the CIA has used the proxy government. Proxy means a fake form of something. Pseudo government, an external government that's outside of you. Because the best governor of your reality is you. You govern yourself accordingly. You don't need an external enterprise or an external component outside of you to be the governing, means by which is used to govern you. There's no one who can govern you better than you. No one's brushing my teeth in the morning. No one's wiping my ass when I take a shit. No one's working out for me. I do those things. I govern myself. I make the choices that I want to make. There are evil choices that stand before me every day, and there are good choices that stand before me every day, and it's left up to me to make the right choice, to choose the things that are going to benefit me. I govern myself. The idea of a government was perpetuated by the CIA. It's been proliferated by them by the use of fear, fear-mongering. Fear cripples logic. I've always said this. You have physical toxins that exist in the world today, and you have emotional toxins. Fear is an emotional toxin. Why do I say that? When you operate in fear, you're fully not even inquiring the faculties of your frontal lobe, meaning that you've abandoned the use of your frontal lobe. You're now using your reptilian brain, the amygdala, which is based upon the concept of fight or flight. So when you're riddled with fear, year after year, about wars, about disease, about pandemics, about deaths, about getting vaccines, about this, about that, this is a slow, systematic approach. There's a definite, nefarious methodology to what they do. What they do doesn't come in forms of an avalanche, because if it did, it'd be too obvious to detect. It's a low-level attack upon the masses. When I say low level, it means that it's covert, meaning that you don't necessarily see it in the open, and it's subtle, and it's frequently done consistently on a subtle level, on a low level where you don't see the impact immediately. The impact is usually something that manifests itself long term. Okay? The CIA has used media as its weapon. Media is the weapon of the people. But before media was used as a weapon of the people were enemies of themselves. Because we are enemy of ourselves, we can't think clearly. We become antagonistic to our own selves. You say, what do you mean by antagonistic towards your own self? It means that you don't trust yourself. You've given up hope on humanity. You're waiting for something external to save the day. Whether you're waiting on Jesus or you're waiting on your government, or you're waiting on your government and you're praying that Jesus influences your government to help you. We've abandoned our sovereign capacity to remedy our own ills. We've removed the state of accountability that comes with being a human. We've taken that completely away. And we've become blame agents. We're pointing fingers. We're trying to find out who's to blame. At first, the first person to blame is the person in the mirror. That's us. We have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, it's us. We've allowed ourselves to be taken over. We don't live in a democracy. We don't live in a constitutional republic. No, people try to use that term, a constitutional republic. We don't live in any of those things. We are governed by a tyrannical legion of systems, not men. The men that are put in place are just a face to represent the system or the systems. Meaning that if you have a nurse or a teacher or a doctor, a nurse or a teacher or a doctor can get fired, but they can be replaced by another body. The bodies are just a representation of the system. So when you have presidents and mayors and governors and senators and legislators and this and that and judges, those are just faces of a system. The system is corrupt. The system was not originally formed by humans. And this is where I'm going to lose many of you guys, and it's okay. What holds all these things together? This large web of deceit that has us all controlled. The origin of it, okay, the beginning of it, the genesis of it originates and comes from extraterrestrials. Not extraterrestrials that you think of, not the ones you see in Hollywood, not the ones that they've brainwashed many of you guys to believe to be, weird looking beings. I'm talking about sentient beings that have an awareness of themselves, They're not terrain. This is not their terrain. They're outside of this terrain. They're not from this planet. They don't originate from this planet. They come from, they are indigenous to another planet. And they come here to planet Earth because planet Earth is a seed planet. And they come here to control. They have many motives. I can't begin to name all the motives. Most of the motives are not benevolent. Most of them have to be malevolent. They have to be evil, because in order for you to gain something from a mass of people, you're going to have to dumb them down to a degree and distract them and incapacitate them from living out to their optimal capacity in order for you to get what you want. What you fear the most is for the race of people to come alive, be awakened, be enlightened, and become more knowledgeable about the things that are going on around them. Because if that happens, then it's going to be very difficult to control that race of people. The government and the governments of the world today, the monetary system that we're under, the idea of wage slavery being something that's looked upon as a noble insertion into our realm, into our reality. We look at it and think that going to work every day is a good thing. It's the worst thing, but we've been brainwashed to believe that. The way we view the idea of germs and bacteria and viruses, the way we view education, public school, the way we view everything is totally incorrect and inaccurate. The books that are put forth to be books that tell true history don't tell true history. They tell lies. Everything that we're under is not contrived by the hands of man, and is not contrived by the hands of spirits or some angels or demons. These are extraterrestrial beings that were talked about in your Bible, that have come on this planet before and manipulated people's genetics. They've always done things to manipulate things on this earth. We are the experiment. We are the proverbial lab rats. We don't know it. We don't think that we are. We think that we're truly free, but we're really not. Freedom is relative, based upon your base analysis, meaning that what's your baseline? If you think that slavery is about being locked up in chains and being beat and having to work for free, if that's your concept of slavery, then anything outside of that and anything apart from that would be viewed as freedom, right? But then again, freedom and slavery, there's a thin line between that. And though slavery in its most extreme description can leave others indifferent to the other spectrums that slavery can actually fall under. There are many forms of slavery. You have mental slavery, you have physical slavery, you have nutritional slavery. Everything that we're under was not created by man. Now, the reason why I'm saying that, because man intrinsically, all right, man intrinsically is good. And I know people don't like to hear that, because people believe in their Bibles, because what they've been taught is that man is wicked, deceitful above all things. The heart is desperately wicked. No, the hearts of the controllers, of the extraterrestrial controllers, are desperately wicked. The ones that have contrived the system that we're under are the ones that are desperately wicked. The ones that deceive us are the ones that are desperately wicked. The ones that are using sonic wave technology and electromagnetic frequencies and the tampering with the frequencies of the planet, because the planet Earth has a certain frequency that it emits, and it's supposed to help the melanated gods of the planet to operate at their optimal capacity, but it's difficult for us to do that because the entire planet has been electromagnetified, and the normal vibrations that the planet is supposed to be giving out is not given out anymore, because we've totally not only polluted the atmosphere, but we've also polluted the electromagnetic waves, the natural, kosher, pristine waves that the planet normally would give out if it was left alone. Those are the people with wicked hearts. Naturally speaking, humans help humans. If you see a baby crying, you want to go help the baby. You see a person in need, you want to go help them. An elderly woman falls, your natural response is to help her up. Someone struggling, your natural response is to do good. We're not evil. We don't have wicked hearts. The system has forced us and put us in a position where all we think about is money. So then people end up, subverting, and they don't know that they're doing this, but some of it could be conscious, but most of it is subconsciously. We end up marginalizing our moral code, our moral standard. We end up bringing that standard a little bit down for money. Hence the term, money is the root of all evil, the love of it. Many men have committed to doing things that they normally wouldn't do because of money. Does that mean man is wicked? No. It just means that the system that we live in, the environment that we live in, has caused us and put us in a position where we have to do things that are less digestible, to our palate. We have to do certain things that we don't like because of money. Many people wake up, go to a job they hate. Why? Because of money. Many people know the truth, they can speak the truth, but they keep silent because if they speak the truth, they can risk their jobs. They can get fired, so they keep quiet because they need their money. It's not that people are wicked, it's that we've been put in a position to choose between a rock and a hard place. And either choice we make, we're doomed. It doesn't make us evil. The system is evil. A kid is starving to death. They run into a grocery store and steal bread. Is a kid wicked for stealing bread? No, the kid is trying to survive. The kid is not evil. There's no human being that's evil. There's some people who have mental disorders, who are, been inflicted with a degree of trauma maybe in their past, and that trauma has found a way to impact their thinking. There's an exception to the rule, but generally speaking, humans have good hearts. I believe they do. Especially the first humans of the planet, the real man, the real God man, not mankind. Especially my melanated brothers and sisters, we have the highest capacity of being humane than any other race, which is why we are very forgiving, which is why we're very tolerant of everything. And we can't understand why people can't tolerate us. We're empathic in a sense as a race. We can feel the pains of other cultures and other ethnic groups that have gone through things, because there's something wound up in our DNA that allows us to do that at a higher rate than any other race. So humans are good. The government is not a human-based system, because number one, governments don't exist. They only exist in the minds of the people that believe that there is a government. And when you continue to say things like, well, the government has the power to do this, the government has the power to do that, then you are self-enslaved. You've actually taken the chains and chained yourself up without anybody doing it. You've done it to yourself. And that's the dilemma that we find ourselves in today. Because we believe in the power of the government, we end up acting accordingly to something that's a figment of our imagination. If everyone, to hell with all the statutes that the governments give out. Statutes and laws are different. Statutes are a subversion or a substrate of laws, okay? That's what statutes are that you don't have to follow. There are only 3 main laws that you have to follow. Natural laws. Don't kill anybody, don't lie, and don't steal from anybody. Those are the 3 main laws. Every other law that's on the books are just statutes by the government, which they use to control people. People are afraid of the IRS because many people have been made an example of, because people didn't know how to fight back. People don't understand the use of legalese by the IRS and by the government, how they use legalese terminology to manipulate you with certain words that they write in these contracts. All right, I don't want to get too far deep into a rabbit hole, but suffice it to say that there are ways that you can fight the system back if you're knowledgeable. There are people who've been pulled over by cops. They know their rights so well that the cops have to leave them alone. Cops are just an extension of the government that we believe to be real. So they have to put certain men in uniform to say that they're here to serve and protect you. There's nobody that can serve and protect you other than you. And if we can have stronger communities, all right, stronger family units, then we don't need to rely on police officers in suits to come save the day, which they rarely do. Most of the times, by the time the cops get there, the crime has already been committed. They're just there to write down a report. The best protector of yourself is you, and the best protector of a civilization are the families and the communities that are confined within that area or within that civilization. Okay? So the system that we're under, it's held intact by a extraterrestrial origin. Some say supernatural, because these extraterrestrials they're not governed by the laws of physics. They're not governed by our laws. They're not governed by, their technologies are so super advanced that they can do things, and they're so highly intellectual, millions of light years more intelligent than we are. So when they do certain things, we deem that to be supernatural because we only see things through the myopic lens of our natural state. Our natural state is this third dimension that we're in. So when somebody or something or some entity can do something that defies those laws, we deem that to be supernatural. There's no supernatural being. They're just beings that can do things that we can't do due to their high technological advanced technology and equipment, and due to their highly evolved intellect. In other words, they're millions of years, light years, much more intelligent than we are. So therefore, they have the power to manipulate us and do it in a way where we can't see it. Do it in a way so subtle that it's not detectable. So when people talk about things that are not detectable, we put them in the category of nut jobs and conspiracy theorists. But many people are waking themselves up to the reality that there are certain things that we have to start to consider, because things aren't making sense as we're moving on, as time progresses, as time moves on. We're starting to see that things are not connecting. The dots are not connecting. And the youth, they are actually starting to see that as well. They're starting to see that something's not connecting. And when things don't connect, because we are electrical beings, we don't connect, disarray ensues, Chaos becomes the mantra, and then it becomes very difficult to extract yourself from that chaos. So the reason why a lot of people have a negative outlook on our youth is because the youth, they feel the disconnect. They just can't detect it. And it's very frustrating to know that there's a problem, but you can't find the source of the problem. So it drives you crazy. So now you start seeking things to give you pleasure, and you totally give up on life. So you start finding yourself addicted to pornography, addicted to movies, addicted to pleasure, addicted to drugs. You're trying to seek some type of understanding and comprehension of the mess that you're in. But it's difficult to do because the system is put in a way where it locks you in to only think one way. And mainstream media is the number one weapon that's used to shape minds of sheep, people who follow, blinded. I encourage everyone to start thinking outside the box. Screw the box, crush the box. There's something else that's going on. We have a shadow government, and the real government that we see is just the face of the real government. The real government we can't see because it's extraterrestrial in origin. It's always been that way. The reason why I can say that because the ancient tablets, all right, those Sumerian tablets that many historians that look into, the writings that were written in cuneiform that people had to translate because that was a very ancient form of writing, very difficult to translate. Our existence, our Earth and our planet has always had visitors. We've always had visitors. What do I mean by that? I mean by visitors, aliens, extraterrestrials, other beings from other planets coming here to do whatever the hell they want. And it's always been that way. It's not, history repeats itself. It's no different today. Just because we don't see the extraterrestrials don't mean that they don't exist. All right? It doesn't mean that they don't exist. They're still here. They're still here. They're working behind the curtains. They have their agents. Personally, I believe that most of these extraterrestrials are working through the race of Europeans and Caucasians. They use them as the conduit to ply their trade, which is why you see the world being dominated by a particular race. Not because they're smarter and better, it's because they are privy or being exposed to extraterrestrial information, which they use for their own gain. The power of cymatic frequencies, the power of using information to sway the mind of the brain, the power of using nanoparticles and putting certain things and ingredients in foods to manipulate the minds of the people, the power of distraction, the power of fear, the power of using war as a means to gain control of other countries and suppress the people. Everything that's happening, even the money system, the idea that America is in debt, that we're going to one day get ourselves, we're never going to get ourselves out of debt. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's made, that the system was made for you to stay in debt, which means that the system was made for you to be a slave. See, the reason why many Americans are in debt is because the country you live in is in debt. The country has practices that puts you in debt. So therefore, the people who live in the country, we're nothing but employees of the state, which is why we all have social security numbers. Every state is a business. That's why you have the governor, who's like the boss. Our social security number is just your employee ID. It's your employee ID. And you're just supposed to work. And you are going to be a reflection of your government. If our government or America is trillions of dollars in debt, then you better believe that its citizens are going to also be in debt as well. All of that I'm mentioning, everything that I'm talking about, They're all done purposefully. It seems subtle, like it's common sense. It's not that common. Because if it was that common, why would we all just agree to it? Why would we all see weather change the way it is and then we think that that's normal? We think that there's no such thing as direct energy weapon or Blu-ray technology to manipulate weather, radio wave, solar radiation management, to manipulate the wave currents, to make certain areas rain and to cause certain areas to have droughts. We think that's unimaginable. We think that every time it rains, it's God doing it. You guys are simpletons. There's no God doing it. It's just technology being used against the weather. Nature has its own way of operating. What man has done with their involvement, what I say mankind has done, with their involvement with extraterrestrial powers and extraterrestrial forces, they've combined using the technology of these outsiders, extraterrestrials, and they're using this technology to wage war on the people by using weather as a means of warfare. We don't think of weather being a means of warfare because we automatically are put into a mindset that only guns and bombs and tanks and torpedoes and and carpet bombing and using drones to shoot people down, as if those are the only forms of weapons that could be used in a war. Weather could be used in a war as well, because you could completely decimate an entire region of people. You can totally annihilate populations without shooting a gun. You can just blame it on nature and use nature to wipe them out. Didn't they, in Maui, Lahara, I think that was I forgot the name of the place in Hawaii, that place that they said was a natural fire, a natural disaster. That wasn't natural. That was deliberate. That was a deliberate attack on that specific area. Wipe it out completely, destroy it. And then when you destroy it, it doesn't matter what the motive is, because so many people are like, why? What do you mean why? I mean, number one, when you destroy a place, you can now build what you want to build there. For starters, that's number one. There are 99 other motives. I'm not going to name all of them. They're all evil motives. There's no good reason. Like, people think it's not a natural disaster. Nature gets the blame for everything. Why evil men hide their hands, being assisted by extraterrestrial powers. Most of the technology that we have that has catapulted man, to a higher level of existence, has been introduced to us by extraterrestrials. Some looking just like us that have involvement with extraterrestrials, or them themselves might be hybrid. And it's that technology which serves as a sort of a two-edged sword, because in one sense it benefits man, it increases efficiency and makes life a little bit much easier, but at the same time it's also used to control us as well. So that's the way evil works. Covert evil works in a way where on the surface it seems beneficial for you, and after a while you start to see that it was to your detriment. It was geared and contrived and created for your destruction. Foods we eat, on the surface foods are pleasurable. You eat the kind of foods that are being served to you from these restaurants and fast food places, and the junk food that you're eating is pleasurable, because we are all emotional eaters. It feels good. So how can something that feels good be bad? Well, if the ingredients are bad, it's going to be bad for you. And that's the best analogy that I can give to what's going on with us. We have the technology, we have these so-called advancements, But with every time an advancement is inserted into our social strata, therein lies, on the back end, a nefarious agenda and a nefarious effect that's going to come forth from what you thought or deemed to be so pleasurable initially in the first place. What glitters is not always gold. So, as I wind down with this video, because I'm getting closer to my destination, and I know I was kind of all over the place, but hopefully you guys are staying with me. The New World Order thing that people have been talking about is not something that's been pulled out of the asses of people. There's some truth to that. What I'm here to tell you guys is that that New World Order has been here forever. The deception is making people believe that this New World Order is something that's coming later in the future. No, it's already here. The deception with the New World Order to think that it's not here is to have what you believe. It's not what you know, it's what you believe. What you believe to be different governments in different countries. For all of us as a collective to say, oh, well, it can't be a New World Order because there are different governments around the world. There's not a one world government. And I'm here to tell you there is a one world government. The one world government governs differently in different regions of the world. Nevertheless, it's still a one world government. You say, why do I say that? Well, the pandemic would not have occurred if we didn't have a one world government. It's already here. It's already here. And people who go against the agenda of that one world government, you're taken out. You're killed. You're poisoned. You're thrown in jail. The rules are already here. They just can't allow us to see who they really are. And the rules are not anybody you see on television. It's not Trump. It's not Biden. It's not Putin. It's not these Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister. It's not anyone you can see. Anyone with a face, those are not it. Those are just faces. Those are just plants. Those are actors. The real controllers, you don't see them. These people that are talking are getting their advice. They're getting their messages. They're getting their agendas from an extraterrestrial connection. They're connected. They're connected. Evil never shows its hands. That's what makes evil evil. Because if evil showed its hands, then people can turn on the evil thing and attack it and get rid of it. Those who control don't want to be seen. They do that intentionally. So there is no government, folks. Stop saying things like the government. It's you. As long as you continue to open your mouth and tell yourself that the government is doing this to you, that it's the government, then you're giving power to the government and you're extracting any potency of yourself or any sovereign autonomy that you have towards yourself. You're basically stripping that away willfully. No one's doing it. You're doing it by yourself. And you have no one to blame but yourself for the predicament that you're in. And I'm speaking to everyone as a collective. If everyone would just take responsibility for what they do and stop relying on the government, we would be in a better place. You can't rely on an evil enterprise to solve your problems. You can't rely on the government to raise your children. You can't rely on the government to feed you. Wick. Everything that the government feeds you or they allow you to eat are destructive to your body. That's deliberate. But they paint themselves as the good guys coming to help. The government, we govern. No. See, the government has made us believe that they're protecting us from some evil. But little do we know, the irony in all of that is that the evil is the government. We need to protect ourselves from them. It's like a pedophile. Luring a kid into a vehicle. Do you want some candy? You got to start with something great to lure people in, to make them believe that you're there to protect them, that you're there to give them something that's good. When in actuality, the perpetrator is always the one that comes with a smile. And right when you are at ease, in your most vulnerable state, they take full advantage of you. Thank you guys for listening.